Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Modishead. I'm the Executive Director of the Centre for Legal Innovation at the College of Law, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you back to the AI for Legal series. This is the very last session in this series, and we frankly couldn't be ending with more of a bang than the presentation that we're going to have today. I'm really delighted to welcome Lisa Crosby and Amanda Fadgerman from Barhead. They're going to take you through this absolutely fascinating presentation on Microsoft Copilot. I've really been looking forward to this one. No pressure, but I think it's going to be really, really exciting. In fact, I know it will be. Lisa and Amanda, again, welcome. Wonderful to have you here. I'm going to disappear in the background. I'll be hovering here, watching and listening, and I'm going to mute myself as well, which is always a good idea. So welcome again, and over to you.
Thank you so much for having us, and good afternoon. Although I believe we have people from all around the world, so that may well be good evening or good morning. So welcome to wherever you're joining us from. My name is Lisa Crosby. I am the Technology Evangelist at Barhead Solutions. We are a Microsoft partner. We're going to be talking to you today about some Microsoft technology and how it applies to the legal space, how AI is coming out from Microsoft to help with that. The little blue badge on the screen there is something that's a community award that I have, which is called Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, essentially because I do YouTube in my spare time to help educate people on all of this stuff as well. Amanda, would you like to introduce yourself? She's our genuine legal tech expert here today.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks, Terry, as well. We're really excited to be here. My name is Amanda Fadgerman. I'm a legal technology consultant also at Barhead Solutions. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you both about AI, Copilot, and in my day job, I wear a hat as the engagement manager for Consensus, which is our matter management and contract lifecycle management product. So we're going to go through the what, where, why, how, and when of Copilot throughout the course of the next hour. Just a quick recap. I know there's a lot on this slide, but 2023 has been a very, very full year. If we think back to the start of the year when ChatGPT was released and everyone was starting to tread their toes into the waters of what does this look like? What will the impact be? We've just had bang, bang, bang of announcements throughout the year. The tide has risen and shifted over its use cases, its warnings, its implications, its limitations. And as one limitation presented itself, that was overcome technically. And so we're sort of at the point now where once the conversation was, be careful about the consumer version of ChatGPT, to look what Microsoft has done over the course of the last 8 months or so. We've now got it's announced Bing Chat, which is its AI Copilot for the web, and now at the other half of the year we now have Bing Chat Enterprise, which is a commercially safe version of Bing Chat. We've got the announcements of Copilot, and that's exactly what we're going to talk to you about today. And so as we go through this presentation, it's really that eye on the prize. What is to come is still a bit unknown. I'm sure there'll be some more announcements before this year is out, and we're really excited to see where we go. But just seeing how much has happened this year just really blows me away. Also, just bringing your eyes down to that bottom left-hand side of the screen, just to understand the differences between what the different categories are. We've got Copilot here, which is really bringing those large language models into your context within Microsoft 365. And again, that's not to be confused with browser extensions. So that's whether in Bing or Chrome, or Edge or Chrome or whatever application you're using, having extensions in your web interface to allow you to chat with a large language model. Then within ChatGPT, you've got plugins, and then that's they're still in preview mode. And if you've got access to ChatGPT 4, you'll have those, the ability to turn those on. And that's these bespoke plugins that allow you to do extra things beyond just chat. And last time I checked, I think there's 108 pages with 8 plugins on a page. So again, the number of plugins is doubling by the day. And then, and most recently in being at the Microsoft Inspire, we got presented with this idea that there are going to be proprietary plugins which actually call the large language models into your Microsoft applications. And that obviously is things like the Thomson Reuters application that we saw demoed at Microsoft Inspire. And I will hand over to Lisa to go through the what of Copilot.
Right, so let's do a bit of a level set on sort of what this technology is and what it means and how it differs from what you might have come across in terms of using things like ChatGPT. And I know many of you will have been to the rest of this series and learnt many of these things. So this is Microsoft's approach to generative AI. Copilot is, think of it as a brand. So it's not a single product. It's actually the terminology that Microsoft is using to work across generative AI across all of the things. So we're going to be honing in on things that we think have the most relevance here today to the legal profession, but Copilot goes across the entire, basically the entire Microsoft stack. And the difference in when we talk about Copilot here compared with going out and using services like ChatGPT is that this is actually bringing that AI capability into your tenant, which is a really core principle of security and being able to work in a safe way with your absolutely precious, commercial data, which we know is really, really important. So the large language model, those foundational models, the things that are sitting underneath ChatGPT, incidentally, Microsoft has like a $27 billion investment in OpenAI. They own 49% of OpenAI. So this is a long-term partnership. This is not them coming to the table at the last minute. The large language model, those foundational models actually get brought into your tenant, have the context of your business data, the chats, the emails, the documents, the things that you work with, and also then become part of the experience of the applications that you use every day. Things like Word and Teams and PowerPoint and Outlook, as well as some of the other applications that you can use for things like managing customer relationships. So all of those things are sort of coming together here, and we're going to have a look at what that means. If we have a look at the next slide, I think we've got some things in here that allow you to sort of get a bit more of a sense of what's going on. So this idea of the large language model coming inside your tenant means that it has access to all of these other things. The Microsoft Graph is where we're storing all of that information about interactions, meetings, and so on. So now what we're doing is using AI to go over the top of things that you're doing in your everyday life, and the ability to start questions like, did anything happen with this customer yesterday? What's going on in my email? Summarize these things for me. So you think about the productivity savings here of all of that manual knowledge work of finding information and working with all of these things, and that extends across your emails, your chats, your documents in a highly secure way, as well as even into things like your customer relationship management system, if that's what you want to do. So let's keep going, Amanda. Core principles here around how Microsoft works with AI is this core principle of security. Microsoft Copilot comes inside your tenant, which means that all of that security layer of logging in and everything that goes with that is part of it. So as an individual user logged in, then the Copilot sits beside you, and it's deliberately called Copilot, not Autopilot, for a reason. It's like having this virtual assistant securely logged in with you with access to the things that you have access to as a logged in user. And Amanda's going to talk a little bit later about getting ready for Copilot and things you can do to make sure that you've got all that set up. So all of that stuff around compliance and privacy becomes very much part of that. And the other key thing we see with Microsoft is this notion of transparent and responsible AI. Unlike ChatGPT, and if anyone's ever used ChatGPT and found that it doesn't know the answer and it hallucinates, and there's been some pretty widely publicized stories, certainly in the legal sector, around terrible things that have happened when that goes on. This is different. This is working in your context, but it will also give you like little footnotes and little references and little sources so that you get that transparency about where the information is coming from, which really mitigates that risk. So where will you find Copilot? As I said, this is something that exists across the entire Microsoft world. We're going to focus here in the next 10 minutes or so as I go through this on the things on the left-hand side in the light blue of the screen there, Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is really this use case around productivity, bringing an AI assistant into all of those applications you use, Word, Teams, Outlook, PowerPoint and so on for productivity use cases. I'm going to briefly mention these other areas here, which is Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. These are the tools in the Microsoft stack that are for business applications, places where you might manage your business development, your client data, be able to kind of build automations and things that you want in workflows within your organization, and how the AI is helping there. And just for context, there are also copilots for developers in GitHub. There are copilots across all of the sort of enterprise security capabilities in the platform as well. So let's have a look at the capabilities of Microsoft 365 Copilot. This is Word. So what we have here is this experience of being able to work with the other documents and things you've got in your organization. With all of these Copilots, what we're seeing is an experience that means you're no longer starting from a blank sheet of paper. So you sit down, you've done a lot of other work, you've done similar documents, you've made notes, you've got things in OneNote, you've got things in other Word documents, you might have other sort of things that you're referring to as an organization around your strategy and so on that you want to draw in. And you think about how much time that takes out of your everyday work. I know for what I do, just collating and finding all that information. So the idea here is that we're using this experience to create that first draft by drawing in all of those things. And it's a bit like an at mention you'll see in the little clip here of how this is working. But the next level up from this is that we can use plugins. So what we can do is to say, all right, Copilot, plug into my legal database, plug into my Thomson Reuters service, plug into whatever that is. And that is where we have got all of this really important stuff, all of these templates and things. And so now not only is it working in the context of my business data, but it's working drawing on the context of those other databases and assets and knowledge areas that we draw on every day to be able to bring those things to life. And we've got the example here of a Thomson Reuters plugin at work doing those things. This extends into PowerPoint as well, right? You've done a Word document, perhaps you're working on a proposal for a new piece of business, and you've done the work in Word, and now you have to present something. Instead of starting again with PowerPoint, what other PowerPoint presentations have we done before? I can take that Word document and say, use that as the basis for creating this proposal in PowerPoint. And then that whole thing will come up at the moment. It starts with a 5-screen experience, and it will bring all of that in. So that the productivity savings here, but all of this, importantly, as we go through, you're in control as a user. At every point, you say, yes, use that content. Yes, do that. You're not just going ahead and having it create it for you. Excel, the world's most used reporting tool. If you're analyzing the business, analyzing where you're going with your figures and so on, you might have some great reporting tools. Chances are many of you are also using Excel along the way. And this ability to ask natural language questions and ask it to analyze the data for you, tell me what the key trends are, show me what things are going on here, is very much part of that experience. And also create a little chart for me. Now, Outlook. How often do we sit down at Outlook and it's hard to keep up with your emails, right? It's out of control. I've been away, I've been doing my client work, I've been out doing something else, and suddenly now my email is out of control and I can't keep up with it, and no one really likes doing that work. Outlook Copilot is very similar to, you might have seen some of the things in Outlook already, depending on what you're using, where you get the little insights, here's what's coming up, here are the things that you might need to be aware of. This goes another level. Here we go, catch up with Copilot. Here are the core things that you've missed while you've been away, summarizing threads, summarizing conversations, drawing your attention to those things. So imagine this, you come back to your email and it's all just summarized for you, so you can get to that fast, get to the most important stuff quickly. And then this extends into Teams as well. So if you've got meetings, especially internal meetings where you're working on things and you don't have don't want to be taking the minutes or the action points and things, this AI is applying across the meeting to go, here's the presentation, here's who's been mentioned, here's a transcript of the meeting, here are the automatically generated follow-up tasks. So again, a lot of that administrative work done for you. And then back to what we were looking at earlier in the deck here around sort of pulling all of this context together inside Teams. Now we have this, well, not now, soon to come, we have this experience called business chat. So this is where this idea of having Copilot as a chat experience, and this is drawing on everything. This can be drawing on your CRM client database. This can be drawing on your internal meetings and chats and emails and things. And we can start to say, what happened here? What's going on with this? What are the developments of these things? What's a status update on what's going on with the conversations that we've been having with this client this week? So all of this is pretty, it's a lot, right? And we will talk about the sort of the pricing and the availability, but all of those pieces around Microsoft 365 Copilot is about bringing AI tools within your context, using your business data, using your documents securely, and allowing you to manage all of those things. So let me take you through another aspect of the Copilot here, which is the Dynamics 365 Sales Copilot. Now, this will actually work if you're using Salesforce as your CRM. You can use this as well. If you are using Dynamics 365, if you're in the market for a CRM, these are good options. Incidentally, actually, for those of you who are watching from Australia, if you're in Sydney or Melbourne, we're actually hosting networking events coming up next week and the week after. Reach out to us. I'm going to be doing some demonstrations of all of this stuff. If you'd like to get a little bit more hands-on, you'd be very welcome to join us there. So this is the Sales Copilot, and this is an experience now of bringing your customer relationship data inside Outlook. So nobody wants to work in a CRM ever. I do CRM for a living. No one ever wants to work in there. So this idea of automatic data entry. Here's Kevin. Here's a new referral that's come in. And down the side of my Outlook experience, it says either for Salesforce or Dynamics, this person is not a contact in your database. Add contact, or incidentally, all of this data is completely faked. Kevin Martin is not a real person. You can see it's a demo Gmail address and so on in there. So we can just click add contact. And then if we have a look at what happens next, all of that information from his signature is automatically populated into the fields, and you can choose what you want in there. And then I just click on that save button. So I've done sort of 2 clicks, save, done, and it's in my CRM. The other piece I love here is this ability to have an email summary. So we've got a long email thread back and forth with someone. You don't necessarily want to track all of that information into your CRM. Nobody wants to sit and summarize it. So one of the best uses of this generative AI that I'm seeing come through is the ability to actually summarize what's going on for you and take that work out of it. So summary of this email, and it can be a summary of the email thread. And I can click again on that single button that says save summary, and that will say, where would you like to save it? I'd like to save it against a particular opportunity or client record in my CRM. Again, single click, save, and you're done. So the savings in data entry and bringing that experience into Outlook, rather than asking people to work in CRM when no one ever does, is a massive uplift. Just briefly, on the marketing side, we're seeing generative AI come into the picture here with ability to craft emails for you. So instead of having to write emails from scratch, the AI can do that for you using your selected tone, drawing on successes of what's come before. And then the other most exciting thing that I see about AI in this platform is the ability for it to help you get access to your data. Most people don't know how to write a query. A database query of some kind is confusing for most users. So natural language querying means that the level of skill required to do this has dropped. And this is another huge benefit of working with this AI in context, is that suddenly you are able to, more people are able to do more things. Far more people are able to say, how many people have used this service in the last 12 months, whatever that is for your organization, rather than being able to drill down the query. Show me all of my clients who've been to our recent events and who have expressed an interest in this practice area, for instance, is much easier to write in natural language. So democratizing that access to your data and insights is a huge part of it too. From there, we've got tools in the platform that allow you to do automations, and we see a lot of things in a legal context using this tool called Power Automate, where we can automate things like notifications and approvals and updating data and so on. So again, instead of a drag and drop interface, describe it to build it. When someone responds to a Microsoft Forms survey, send me an email and send a message to Teams. Click on that. And then what it will do is actually pull in all of the pieces that we need to see what's going on there and build that flow out. So it says, here's the suggested flow. Is this what you mean? I can look at that and go, yep, that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead. And then the next screen is that it will just bring up that flow built for me, and it's done. So again, creating automations with natural language is something that we are able to do.
Just before we move on, Lisa, there was one question. It's just come in, whether or not FilePro is one of the CRMs.
No, it's only Salesforce and Dynamics 365. Two more pieces here just to finish off this section. Power Virtual Agents is a chatbot tool. So we're all familiar with ChatGPT and chatbot tools now. The thing here is that this can connect to either your website or any knowledge base things that you've got. So if you're using SharePoint as a knowledge base, plugins again to your legal matter management system or any of those precedent databases or whatever you've got, and then the chatbot can effectively instantly be a Q&A bot, an intelligent Q&A bot over the top of your data source. This is something that we're really looking at exploring to see what's going to be possible here. This is brand new, but the idea you don't even have to build the chatbot anymore. You basically just point it to the knowledge source, point it to the database, and you've got an instant chatbot. And then finally, when we're working with what's called Power Apps, so these are custom applications, we've got ways of, back to this idea of being able to query your data. So the example we're looking at here is Consensus, which is our contract lifecycle and matter management application that we've built here. And what you'll see is an example on the side here of a Copilot experience, and showing that idea of being able to query your data. So you've got all of this stuff in here about all of the contracts you're working on, all of the documents, your tasks, your obligations, and so on. And then you can ask it questions like the examples we see here. What's the average contract stage? When does the MSA expire? And it will give you those things coming back. So again, you've got this lovely database and much greater access for everyone to use it. All right, Amanda, I'm going to hand back to you now to take us through the sort of how to get prepared for all of this stuff. And another question there, just before I move on with the chatbot, can you apply it to selected internal documents? If you've got documents in SharePoint, that's one of the use cases. If you've got other internal repositories, then we'd need to look at the plugins available to do that. So it's going to be case by case of where that's being stored. If you're in the Microsoft platform, though, that's definitely the good starting point.
Thank you, Lisa. So, this brings us to the why. Why does this all matter? Because as we know, as with any sort of change, there's always a question of what's in it for me, which is going to be critical to the change management point of getting people on board and using any new system. So it matters because we know that the delivery of professional legal services is changing. And it matters because generative AI will probably have, one of the biggest impacts on the legal industry. And why Copilot matters in particular is because there's a huge difference between the consumer versions of, Bing Chat and ChatGPT and what Microsoft is offering us here with Copilot. And that's going to be a big, significant difference. So as Lisa said, this is Copilot, not Autopilot. You are always in control. So you decide what you want to keep, if you want to modify it, if you want to discard it, if you want to use it. It's secure. So it's built on Microsoft's comprehensive approach to security, compliance, and privacy. And Copilot large language models, and they're not trained on your tenant data or your prompts. So it overcomes a lot of the problems and limitations of the consumer products like ChatGPT. It's integrated into your Microsoft 365 environment, and it inherits automatically all of your company's security, compliance, and privacy policies and processes. So the impacts are going to be, have been described as threefold. Unleash creativity. So it allows you to jumpstart that process, that you're not starting with a blank page ever again, and basically saves you that grunt work in the hours spent writing or sourcing or editing documents. Unlocks productivity. So to lighten the load of some of that busy work that slows us down is often not the valuable work, that high value, high risk, high strategic work that we want to be operating as and doing as legal professionals. And to up-level skills, both so that you can deliver outstanding work and also so that you can actually make the most of the capabilities that these apps offer. So next we get to how to be Copilot ready. What do you need to do now to get your head around what's to come and be put yourself in the best foot forward. And I've broken this down into sort of 3 key overarching categories: enablement, technical, and financial. And so the starting point is under enablement is to understand the technology. And I probably am speaking to the converted in many respects, because you're all here because you want to understand, what it's all about. And, at this point, I also want to really strongly encourage you to go back through the CLI sessions, because there's no greater free and foundational level of learning than what the CLI has on offer through its AI series. It really provides you a brilliant foundation to understand what the technology is, understand how to use it and its limitations. Microsoft also have a lot of Microsoft learning capability, which is publicly available. And again, these resources are free. So dedicate some time to understanding what the technology is. We've got those guidelines in the ABA rules in the States, for instance, that technical competency is one of the key competencies. And I think it's only a matter of time before something like that equivalent is brought into Australia. We'll go through these one by one: experimenting what's possible, embedding this new concept of the AI aptitude into ways of working, developing prompt engineering skills, with technical readiness, reducing your digital debt, understanding your content, getting your head around the permissions and security aspects of where your content is being stored within your organization, and getting ahead of the curve in terms of what the technical prerequisites are. And we'll go through some of the other financial readiness activities, like getting a business case ready, reviewing what your pricing model is, considering your workforce, and developing some governance around what that all looks like. So, in addition to understanding the technology and how it works, the first step really is to understand that you already live in a world of AI. And so Microsoft has been slowly embedding AI into our apps, and Copilot will be a natural extension to the way that Microsoft have been integrating AI solutions into the Microsoft 365 suite. So the technology is already there, and skeptics will be hard placed to argue that this is, anything new or something to be overly wary of. If you've got access to the automatic updates that you've got in a cloud version of Microsoft 365, then there are a lot of new features and functionalities that have have been slipping into our Word applications, either in desktop or Word Online, that you might not have experimented with already, such as being able to draft summaries of your documents in Word. This, for example, is only a feature in Word Online, but probably only a matter of time before it's also in desktop. And similarly, using the designer tools to be able to fix formatting and styles and headings in your Word documents. I know it's probably the bane of many lawyers' existence when you're going to create a table of contents and you've got your numbering all wrong and your indented numbering is just not quite right with your styles and formatting. So these are, AI examples of AI that's already in place, that you're already using, that you just don't realize is an example of AI. So as I said, Copilot will be that natural extension. And the natural extension in terms of look and feel is really to divert your eyes to that right-hand side panel. That's where you're going to see Copilot most of the time. That's where most of the insights are going to be. That's where you're going to be using those activities and doing those tasks that you need to point your eyes into to say, what can I do in this sidebar? What insights can I get from this sidebar to help me with my day-to-day job? And so we've got here, insights, and Lisa went through some of those insights that you can get in Outlook, preparing for meetings. These are things that you get in those digest emails, but really bringing these to light. So I would encourage you as step 1 or step 2 here to experiment with what's already available. Now, I'm a Chrome person. I think a lot of us are as well. So it's going to take me quite a lot to actually switch to my default settings to Edge and to use Bing. But it's worth taking a look, because that look and feel of that sidebar with that chat-like interaction, the access to the apps that you get on the side, the ability to click on Outlook directly within Edge. So you've got Outlook and your web content that you can interact with straight away in amongst each other. You can open up the web content and have OneNote there by your side so that you can actually be taking notes in OneNote while you're looking at web content. This idea of this, interoperability between these applications all in one place is going to be a key skill set, but does require a change in thinking to how can I use it. So here you've got chat in Bing, chat Bing, and you've got different conversational styles you can use, different things you can get. And, this is an example where I've taken a screenshot of an OSLE case summary, and you can ask it to highlight text and ask it to do things, explain, revise, summarize, expand. It's giving you content and actually even telling you which sources it's taken that content from. It's suggesting follow-up questions and saying, do you want me to go to those sources to get you these answers, or do you want me to stick to this current page of content? And even suggesting what other questions might you want to ask. And again, while legal research, may not be the perfect use case for ChatGPT or using Bing Chat, there are dedicated tools that is probably going to give you more accurate results in that context. There's a lot of other ways that legal professionals can use this concept of chat to get insights for business development. Preparing for a meeting, and you want to know if there's been any latest news or what the summary is about an organization, to help get your starting point for content. So here, chat, compose, get insights. There's so many different facets and so many different ways that you can interact with these features beyond just legal research. So fairly recently, Microsoft announced Bing Chat Enterprise. And so this solves that need that, that we've been warning a lot of our users of, which is don't put your confidential data into the chat like ChatGPT, because that data could be used to train the model. And this overcomes that problem. So it's designed to have the commercial sensitivity and have protections in place to keep your organization data safe. So what goes in and what comes out remains protected. The chat data isn't saved, and Microsoft has no eyes on or access to the chat content, and no one sees it. And your data isn't being used to train the underlying models. So what Bing Chat Enterprise gives your organization is AI-powered chat in a work context with commercial data protection. So it allows you, it gives you the assurance that that commercial data isn't going to get leaked outside your organization. So that's an incredible advantage. And, it is free, it is accessible currently. You need to switch it on. So again, whether or not, the audience is quite broad here today, we've probably got a variety of people from, small law firms to lawyers in large, big private practice to in-house teams. So talk to your business partners, talk to your IT teams about turning some of these tools on and ensuring that you've had the opportunity to have a play and understand how they're being used. Which leads me to this concept of there's new skills for working. Now, this is an extract from Microsoft's Work Trends report, which identified 3 key findings, one of which is that there is a need to have a new AI employee aptitude. And the reason why it's critical to start to get into the habit of thinking about, how can AI assist me here? In the same way that Google has become second nature. We go to Google now to answer our questions. We don't even think about it. It's the first thing that we do when we need to know the answer to something is we Google it, and Google has become the verb of the action. And so using Copilot will probably be the next evolution of that. And the question that will need to become second nature to us here is, how can I do this faster using AI? Or what can AI help? How can AI help me with this? Can it help me brainstorm faster for my next strategy day? Can it help me find, the latest news, latest developments to make sure that I'm up to speed with the latest of what's been happening? Can it give me a starting point for the content that I'm writing on? Can it give me some insights on how to approach a difficult conversation, how to negotiate in a mediation, what the other party might be thinking emotionally when you're approaching a situation? So it really is this AI aptitude to indicate a bit of a paradigm shift, because Copilot really will transform the way of working. And so here we have skills like critical thinking, analytical judgment, complex problem solving, creativity, they're all new competencies, and they're not going to be competencies just for people in technical roles or AI experts, but it will need to become second nature to tap into this AI way of working in doing your day job. And one of those examples of some of those skills is prompt engineering. It's not just the AI tools or just thinking, how can AI assist me, that will need to become second nature, but also how to use them. So specific prompt engineering skill sets will enable you to craft the best prompt to elicit the best response. And so you both need to understand how to do that. You need to understand that prompt engineering is a conversation. It's not just, you can't expect the AI model to just provide you with a definitive or flawless answer, in much the same way that Google is a little bit linear in ask question, get answer, maybe click on 3 or 4 links to try and validate your answer, but that's it, it's a source. Using prompt engineering to have conversations with your data, to explore ideas, to generate insights, and to spark creative thinking in a very different way. So there's a lot of different skills when it comes to prompt engineering. And again, I know the CLI has run some series on prompt engineering, which I'd strongly encourage you to listen to. I'm more than happy to also speak to anyone individually about some of those prompt engineering skill sets. And because it's a relatively new discipline to effectively use large language models to get the best answers. So moving on to some of the technical Copilot readiness activities. As I mentioned earlier, in May, Microsoft published their Work Trend Index, which made 3 key findings: that digital debt is costing us innovation, that there's this new AI employee alliance, and that every employee will need an AI aptitude. So just focusing on the first of those 3 here, we're all carrying digital debt, both at an individual level and at an organisation level, whether that is the inflow of data, the creation of documents, emails, meetings, notifications, especially in the context of legal documentation. It can be quite overwhelming. And as we know, this pace is only intensifying. Every minute spent, looking for information, trying to find the documents, trying to manage this digital debt is costing us, minutes in productive work, which, as we know, actually has a big impact on lawyers, both in terms of their overall enjoyment and their job satisfaction, and also in terms of the strategic value they can add to their organisation. So digital debt is more than just an inconvenience, it's actually impacting business. So there's 2 points here. One is to do a spring clean of your own knowledge sources and tidy up the unnecessary clutter that is in your OneDrive at a personal level, and also to do the same thing at a SharePoint and organisation level, so SharePoint and Teams, so that you can actually have a good handle on what your digital portfolio looks like of content, knowledge sources, information sources, precedent sources, repository of contact sources across your organisation. Get a handle on where the information is stored and what's there. The next piece of that puzzle is this concept of content management. So you can see on the left side there, that image and that Lisa went through earlier with this concept of tagging or @ing a document. In much the same way that we @ a person, and we're used to doing that now in Teams and in emails, we'll be able to call on documents or call on files through @ing its document name. So we know that the impact that generative AI will have on knowledge workers, but I don't know if we've actually given a lot of thought to the impact it's going to have on knowledge management. And I think there's going to be two impacts here. So firstly, actually knowledge management will become less critical. We won't need such structure like you can see on that right-hand side, where typically lawyers have been saving documents in folders and subfolders and subfolders and subfolders because you needed to know where a document lived in order to know that that was the right version of the document. And so because people had different naming conventions, because we worked in disparate teams and we had drives here, there and everywhere, you needed to know where something lived in order to find it, because you might not know what it was called, or you might not even know if the document existed, but if it wasn't in that folder, that was the only place it could be. So this idea of knowledge management is going to change. And I've been a proponent for quite a long time of this more flat information architecture hierarchy. There's no need to have this very vertical hierarchy. Not only does it create a lot of clicks in order to find the document you're looking for, but now through search and through adding documents in Copilot, there will need to be a mind shift in the users of knowledge management, because you'll be able to call on a document without knowing where it lives. And so lawyers will need to know that just by the information that comes up on the screen. So usually I think it'll have the name of the document, maybe when it was last modified and who it was last modified by, that is enough information for you to say, yep, that's the right document. And so that's why the second point here is that naming conventions will become quite important, because you need to be able to know that that is the right document without knowing that it is by virtue of where it lives. So as you start typing, the names of the documents that you're calling will refine. So you've got to be able to give it meaningful names, but not too lengthy names, and create some consistency and some guidelines about the format and the acronyms that you're going to use in your naming convention, so that you can actually, select the right document, and without the need to have 10 different separate documents of, contract dated the 1st of September, 2nd of September, 3rd of September, final, _final, really, really, really final this time, because, any user who is clicking on the document dated the 25th of August won't know if that is the latest version unless they go into the folder and check that there's no later version dated the 28th of August. The other thing that you'll need to get your head around is the way your content and the permissions and security of the content in your SharePoint sites. So by design, Microsoft 365 Copilot will respect the specific user permissions of any content in your Microsoft graph, and it will respect those information barriers to give users access to content on that basis. So you've got to get your information ready for search. So if you've already got the right organization access controls in place, then there's probably not a lot you need to do here. Theoretically, you might think, well, anyone using Copilot, they could use Copilot and get access to information they shouldn't access through search as well. And that's probably the case. If you don't have those barriers in place, then you are vulnerable to people accessing confidential information that you don't want them to access, like employee information. But I feel like theoretically, there's probably more potential for someone to interrogate your data using Copilot than it might be to search for it. So get those Chinese walls up. There's a lot of content and a lot of functionality that Microsoft have through its security platform, through content labels, through membership to groups that you need to do. And, this is where you need to talk to your IT partners and talk to those SharePoint Admin Center to make sure that you've got those right controls in place, because the same principles will apply to Copilot. And there are a number of technical prerequisites that you'll need to do. So making sure you've got an E3 or an E5, they're licensing requirements for Copilot. You'll need an Active Azure Directory-based account. You'll need access to your Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise, OneDrive. You'll need to get started on the new Outlook for Windows. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but on the top right-hand side of Outlook pane, you can switch to the new Outlook, which opens up in a separate app. I've experimented with it and I've actually gone back because it does. It takes a while to get used to. It's not an entirely smooth transition here. But if you're going to want to take advantage of Copilot in Outlook, then you will need to make that transition. So there are a ton of features that do make the case of, well, why should I put the effort into learning and getting used to the new Outlook, like pinning emails, snoozing emails, etc. And Copilot will be another example of something that you'll be able to do. But the point here is that the richness of your Copilot experience really depends on the data sources that can be indexed by your Microsoft 365 tenant. So tenants which are most abundant in data in its Microsoft 365, the Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, they're going to get the best results from Copilot. So with access to that comprehensive organization data, you're going to get more relevant and personalized content. So, if all your document content is stored on iManage or Net Documents, as I know is often the case, I think there are discussions taking place with organizations for some sort of integrations. But if that's where all your knowledge sources are stored, you're not going to be able to use the SharePoint repository to get some of that content data. So there is a bit of a trade-off, and you are going to have to start to have those discussions if you think that Copilot is worthwhile. Because here's the next point, it is going to cost $30 a user a month. So there is a bit of a business case here that you need to make and that you need to consider to say, is this going to be worthwhile for my users? Consider who in your team should have access to Copilot. Develop a plan for measuring whether or not you can get an ROI for using Copilot. And that means starting to capture some data now about your processes. This is basic legal operations, theory of how long are you spending doing some of these tasks now in order that you can actually measure its impact later down the track and make the business case for installing Copilot into your staff. And maybe you're only going to make it available to, a slow release, certain levels of staff or certain roles within your organization. I'm going to just collapse these two because I feel like AI, the Centre of Legal Innovation, for instance, has spent a lot of time on some of these topics already. You will need to consider your pricing model and your workforce composition. So who is in your workforce? Who are your billable lawyers? What sort of roles do they play? What support staff do you have? How can you support, those support staff or admin roles, or potentially even replace some of those roles? You've really got to make sure that you've got the right people doing the right tasks for the right price. And Copilot really puts a different lens on that analysis to say, well, now with these skills, let's rethink that. Let's make sure that we do have the right people doing the right tasks. It also really, as Joel Borowski covered earlier this month, puts a new lens on this idea of the billable hour, because Copilot will really be able to cut down drafting time. And so maybe the billable hour might not be as lucrative as that some form of value-based pricing. And the last thing on the list here is to develop your policies and an AI governance framework. So again, the concept of being able to understand the ethical implications and make sure that your organization has a policy on its use and how to use it, understand, what the implications are, what roles you've got, set up a center of excellence in your organization so that you can actually have a group of people or a working group that has main carriage of how this is going to get implemented across your organization and what sort of governance frameworks you need in order to implement it. And so we're at the end of this session. When will it become available? It is a bit of a question mark. We know now that it's currently available to about 600 enterprise customers on an early access program. We know that Dynamics Copilot is currently available in Australia for preview, but unfortunately it's not available. Microsoft 365 Copilot is not available in Australia yet. And likely, and I think Lisa might just jump in here at the end, it will probably come after some of the rest of the world.
There's no promised time frame, except that this stuff is moving very quickly. The issue with availability in Australia, as I understand it, is processing power and getting the hardware in this country, and global shortages of these things and the cost of that. So it is rolling out around the world, but the approach that Microsoft is taking here of testing it with a large group, I suppose, of enterprise customers first before it gets rolled out at scale is very much part of that responsible AI approach. This is a massive change to the way that we work. So I'm, as much as I want to get my hands on it, also happy that that's happening at that scale too. Oh, hello, Gary. We're using it now. It was available last week in Australia. Microsoft 365 Copilot. I'm going to go check that straight after this because that's news to me. I've got all the dynamic stuff. Unless you are in one of those organizations that's got access, Gary, I might have to give you a call after this.
You're one of the lucky ones. We're jealous. All right. Any other questions, Terry?
Just giving folks a few minutes to see if they want to put some of those together. But I just want to say this is just absolutely amazing. It really is an incredible product. And the thing about it, I think, is just going to be its usability, but its access. That it's just going to make such a difference to people in terms of not having to buy a whole bunch of different products, try and get them to speak to each other. It's all going to be there in one place. So, you know, amazing presentation, but also just an amazing tool, I think. Folks, just hanging in here. If we've got any more questions, we've got one more that's come in.
Yeah, sorry, Gary, again, they're on the global pilot. That makes sense.
Yeah.
You are lucky. I still want to talk to you.
Yes, or jealous, you know, there's another sentiment in all of this as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, folks, I know that you're likely to have lots of other questions. There's a lot of information to consume here, particularly for those of you that are looking at this for the first time. So I know, and as has been said, that Amanda and Lisa are both open to you communicating with them. I guess they'll find you really easily on LinkedIn, so that's always a good place to go to find you. So please do follow up afterwards with them if you've got questions, and find them there. And I know that they'll come back to you. But really, really grateful, Amanda and Lisa, for the presentation. Fabulous presentation. As I say, I'm super excited. It's like, where can I go? Where can I go to kind of get this and start playing with it immediately? And as I say, Gary, just envious there, really. Thank you, everyone, as well, for joining us today. You'll find the Centre on LinkedIn as well. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the final in this series of AI for Legal. And thank you very much, Amanda, for mentioning the other sessions that we've got. There's a lot there. There's a lot for us all to kind of take in this presentation and generally, I think, across the board in the AI for Legal space. So the series was absolutely intended to be foundational, absolutely intended for you to be able to jump in and to learn and to kind of build your own beginning, really, of what's going to be a long and, I think, a continuous journey as well. So thank you very much. Thank you for sending us off with an absolute, as I said at the beginning, a bang, Amanda and Lisa. Really, really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks again, folks.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.